Hello, welcome to SEO Hangouts with Josh Bachynski. Today we have an awesome show. We're super excited. We have a fantastic show. We have Ted Code Crusher Kubitis with us, the author of the Cora SEO software. If you've been living in a hole somewhere, Cora is the best SEO piece of software that exists, bar none. I'm not exaggerating. That's not hyperbole. It is by far the most powerful competitive analysis tool out there that exists. And it is by far the best correlation software for SEO that exists. And so we're super excited to have Ted on the show to do a demo for Cora, which is now the new version 5.22, hot off the presses. It's the newest version, so that's fantastic. Before we get to that, I'd like to do our first segment. Actually, you know what? I'm not going to do that segment. I just want to go right to Ted because I want all this time to be for Cora. So if you guys have any questions, add them in the top right-hand side of the chat. If you want us to do a Cora report for you, give us the page you want to rank, the search query you want to rank for, and the language and the country if it's not US and English. And I'll be running Cora reports for you in the background while Ted's doing a demo on the software. And get all the questions ready for Ted, guys. And Ted, away you go. I'll give you focus. You're ready to go, brother.
Thank you. So, latest version is out. I have slides with the value proposition, but I'm going to skip that today because you guys largely know that. I'll have a webinar probably next week that goes over all this intro to Cora stuff. So if you don't know what Cora is, it's a SEO factor measurement tool. You put in your keyword, you put in your website, and it measures 800 up to 880 different SEO factors. And it tells you which ones appear to influence your rankings and how much of each one you need to be competitive. And so that's the idea. Why it works, I'll skip that.
We know why it works. We're already Cora fans. Let's get into
how it works. So this is more important. If you've used Cora in the past, some of this is similar and some of this is different. You enter in your keywords, you specify whether you want mobile or desktop, what country, if any. You can localize to a city. So if I select Germany, I can localize to Berlin. Language, and then of course you enter in your keywords and you hit search, and what you get is these results all populate and you get your variant keywords. These variant keywords are the same words that are made bold here. Google makes them bold. We highlight them so they're easier to spot, but Google made them bold. And the reason Google does that is they're saying, look how relevant our search results are. But that's a two-way street because they're telling us these are the words that make your page relevant for the search term.
Right.
So we collect all those words and we measure them everywhere they occur on the page. And of course, sometimes you agree with them, sometimes you don't. So you can edit them if you choose to. For example, sometimes Google will highlight the names of prominent DUI attorneys. And those might not be applicable to you, so you might delete those because you aren't those people. So you can tweak those before you run your report. And then the idea is, in this track column, you select the page you want to get recommendations for, and then you track your competitors in the competitor column, so you would click those. For example, there's Yelp here in the first one. You might disagree that they're a competitor because it's one of those large directory sites. And if you're not a directory site, you're not going to compete the way they compete. So you might uncheck them as a competitor and check somebody else. You can have any number of competitors you want. And when we give you recommendations on how to tune your page, it's based on your competitors chosen. So we won't recommend based on everybody else. So we're going to analyze the top 100 to figure out which factors appear to measure, but we're only going to give you tuning advice based on the competitors you've selected.
That's wonderful. I mean, that graphical user interface upgrade, it was like, that's just golden right there. That's fantastic.
The include column, you generally never want to use. Like, I want to get rid of it. I have a couple customers who still say, no, it's vital. So, I give people the tools to prove me wrong. This is one of those cases. I think excluding websites is a huge mistake, especially now that you can pick competitors. Like in the past, it made more sense when you couldn't. But now, if you exclude a website, it artificially shifts the rankings of everything below it up. So that's a bad thing. And it takes away sample size from the correlations. So that's a bad thing. And since your tuning advice is only based on the competitors, I don't think there's really a need to ever exclude. There was one case where a customer came to me and said, Ted, every time Cora gets to result number 74, the web server doesn't respond and Cora gets stuck there. So I excluded result 74, ran the report again, and I got my data. Okay, that's a good reason to use the exclude feature. But short of something like that, you probably never want to exclude. And then this deficit strategy here, people who use Cora 482 probably remember the practical maximum.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what the practical maximum was a named preset of what you're seeing here. So I had these all configured behind the scenes, and I gave it a name called the practical maximum. And what it was results 1 through 3 as competitors, using the maximum and including the page 1 average. And what that means is that for each factor, we're going to select the maximum factor measurement for your selected competitors, or the page 1 average, whichever is largest, and that's the goal for what we want to tune to. So you can sculpt what your tuning goal is by selecting competitors and changing these settings. So all you're doing is creating the rules for where the bar is set on how to tune a page. And so it's totally customizable. But if you want to continue using that practical maximum from Cora 4.82, just check the top 3 as competitors, set it to maximum, include the page 1 average. That's exactly the same thing as the 482 practical maximum.
Right.
The shared average includes the page 1 average across all of the shared data, which is about 15,000 Cora reports at this point.
Wow.
And so when you include this, you're adding the ability to get information when your keyword doesn't necessarily have it. So for example, if you have a really long tail keyword where there's no SEO competition to speak of, nothing's going to correlate. The trends aren't going to make any sense. There's going to be very little to work off of. The shared data will say, hey, these factors are extremely powerful and broadly applicable. You may want to tune to the shared standard for this keyword that doesn't have any data. In general, the shared average is only useful for low competition keywords. The second you get into a high competition keyword, they tend to be tuned much greater than the shared average anyway, so it'll have no effect. So if you have a really long tail keyword or a low competition keyword, shared average might help give you ideas. Any questions on this front UI?
Yeah, and so you have a bunch of other options in there under deficit strategy, under maximum. Can you talk us through a bit some of the other options you have in there?
Yeah, I believe there's 5. So
do you want me to show my screen what they are, or?
Here, I can do it 1 second. Let me find Cora. Where did I put it?
In fact, you know what? I'm doing a search right now for someone.
Here it is.
I could just take them through how you use it very basically, and you can explain it there if you want, or never mind. Go ahead. Do it that way. That was good.
Okay. So we have the maximum, the average, and 3 standard deviation settings. So the maximum, you kind of get the idea for. It'll get the maximum factor measurement from your competitors. If you did the average, it would get the average factor measurement from your selected competitors. And then the standard deviations, they're beyond the mean of your selected competitors. So if you found the median, or not the median, sorry, the mean factor measurement for all your competitors, one standard deviation is going to be the variance beyond that mean. So it's let's see how to put it. You might find that the average for a factor might be 6 keywords and heading tags, but there's kind of a plus or minus amount where as you go across all those competitors, it's 6 matches per heading plus or minus 2. And so that deviation of 2 that can occur is what we're talking about. So 6 being the mean and 2 being the standard deviation, then you're talking a value of 8. And then 1.5 standard deviations and 2. And the reason we have these settings in there is because we've had on a number of occasions people doing single variable testing saying, hey, for certain factors, there seems to be this limit we see in the search results of things not going beyond 2 standard deviations. So kind of like a theoretical over-optimization limit. Now, I personally think that science is not good enough and people need to go back and test it. And because every time somebody has made an over-optimization rule, I have always found examples on page 1 of Google that beat whatever limits they say are imposed. So it's there. So if you're worried about over-optimization, you could say, well, let's see what it looks like at 1.5 standard deviations. How do I fare there? Or I could tune down to the averages. The problem with tuning down to the averages is that the average of page 1 will get you to the top of page 2. And so it's not a great goal to set in my mind. But again, I'm giving you the tools so you can prove me wrong if you want to. So it's in there.
Cool. Okay.
Did you say that the average of page 1 will only get you to the top of page 2?
In general, if you're tuning to the averages, and I know for a while Chase was advocating that on his channel quite a bit, tune to the average. You know, when I do it, it's like a surefire recipe to get to page 2, and that's not where I want to be.
Okay.
I mean, and it makes sense, you know, to do well on page 1, you need to have an above average page. So if you're tuning to the average, you're not above the average.
Yeah, at the end of the day, you need to have you need to have scientific studies to prove what the actual variances of the specific factors you want to be at are. So Chase is guessing do the average of page 1 probably because he doesn't know if there's an over optimization penalty. So it's kind of a safe-ish thing for him to say as an SEO educator and consultant.
Well, it's he's still probably going to help a lot of people with that advice because you're talking about people who are generally ranking 76,
right?
And when they tune to the page 1 average, they're like, wow, I got to page 4. That's improvement. And so to a certain point it is, but, keep your eye on the prize. We're really looking for top of page 1.
Of course, yeah. Yeah, or at least page 1, but preferably north of 5 at least, if not number 1 for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, Ted, yeah, go ahead, continue. So that's the front end GUI. What do you got next for us?
Okay, so let's talk about some of the settings. So they've all been reorganized because there's an awful lot of settings and we couldn't use one screen anymore to manage it all. So the first thing I did was I blocked out the serial keys so I don't accidentally show my serial key in videos anymore. So I've done that in the past. And then I've added this box. So if you want to turn Google's filtering off and see what that does to the data, you have an option there. You can specify the output folder on where you want to save these. And this becomes really cool when we get into profiles, and I'll talk about that later. Fetch mode, for a while I was diagnosing issues, I put in a bunch of fetch modes. We're down to 1. So you have no choice in it anymore. And then number of threads. Eventually, though, what's going to happen here, what I'm hoping to do with this is I'm going to make an option with an add-on API so that you can put all the Chrome rendering in the cloud. So that part of fetching the websites and rendering them could all be cloud-based. And so you say, I'd want Cloud Chrome, and here's my API key. Bam.
Super cool.
So that's what's coming in this space for fetch mode. Number of threads, I increased the amount of parallel threads. So now you can use a supercomputer and leverage the heck out of all your cores. In general, if you have 4 cores, it's going to run 4 threads. You might try up to 8 because there might be a little bit of wiggle room in there, but you're probably going to see diminishing returns after 8 and not get any value. What ends up happening when you queue more threads than you have cores is you're just basically queuing future work to run on the processor. So you're just putting all that future work in memory instead of it actually getting done faster. So typically, 1 to 2 threads per core is where you want to dial this setting. Chrome timeout. So when do you want it to drop dead on trying to render a page? And this is an interesting thing. I've learned a lot about Googlebot building Cora and using embedded Chrome because there's all these timings. And so one of the timings is, when do you consider the page loaded? And Google, what Googlebot is doing is they're saying 20 seconds after document ready, that's officially when we're done looking at your web page. Any content changes you make after that will not be seen by Google. And that's, the cornerstone of the Google Time exploit. But in essence, that's what they're saying is Google has a hard stop on when your page is loaded, including all the JavaScript, at 20 seconds after document ready. And so what we do is we load the page in Chrome, and then we pull the DOM once a second for about 10 seconds until we see that the content of the DOM isn't changing anymore. Its size is static.
Okay. Yeah.
So if the DOM stops changing for a couple seconds, we're like, okay, it's loaded. And we snapshot the DOM, and that's your rendered HTML.
Okay.
But
that's a clever way of doing it. I like that.
Yeah, but it's tricky. There's all these definitions on, when is it done? And you can watch some pages, they're never done. They will time out every time because they keep changing the content once a second.
Right.
So yeah, so you have to set these definitions. So changing the Chrome timeout for JavaScript framework websites could actually change the content you're seeing. And unfortunately, we can't really do 20 seconds like Google's doing. Even Google's not doing 20 seconds. They're accelerating time on their servers, and they're getting to 20 seconds in about 1.2 seconds. We don't have that technology, and we can't wait 20 seconds per page. That's a bit crazy. I suppose if you wanted to, you could, but I doubt you'd leave it there.
What are these analytical settings over on the right-hand side here? These look very interesting.
Okay, so these are for match words, okay? And desktop you're used to, the Google match words. These are the words that Google makes bold.
Right.
But over on the mobile side, Google got rid of them. They took them away. And so we don't have the Google match words on the mobile side.
Right.
So we have these other keyword strategies. So this one uses LSI analysis on the search results to figure out which words commonly occur across all the search results and use those words. And there's a threshold here. When you do a mobile search, you will see in the log messages, all the match words show up with a number next to them. That number next to them is how many search results use that word. And the threshold is how many you need to make the list. So 5 of the search results had to have the word for it to make this LSI match word list.
Okay, yeah.
And so you can look at that log message and you can choose where the bar is for words to be included or excluded.
Isn't that setting a little dangerous? Because that was the setting that I was having trouble with on the major LSI report.
Well, this doesn't affect the LSI report. This is just the match words on how you figure out which words are considered matches.
Right. But I mean, setting it as a threshold of, okay, it has to be, the keyword has to appear on 5 different pages before we're going to add it to the list. It's how did you come up with 5? I mean, it's a side point, but I could see all kinds of interesting issues there.
When you're doing a lot of mobile, you probably want to adjust it on a keyword by keyword basis. You'd want to tweak it a couple times for sure, get it where you like it.
Right. So some tweaking is required, some playing with the dials.
Yeah. And one mode I want to do, because mobile doesn't have the match words, I want to have a mode for mobile that's used the desktop Google match words. So it'll query the desktop words and then use them for mobile.
That's exactly what I was thinking as well. I thought that might be a good way to do it.
Yeah, so once I get to it, I'll make another mode that does that, and then we can select that mode here.
Cool. Okay. Now, a big change in Cora 5 was profiles. What the heck is that all about?
Profiles. Okay, hopefully I have that as the, nope, not the next one. Where did I put a profiles? Let me switch over to Cora. Might not have put a profile setting in there. Profiles. So what you can do is all these settings, all the general settings, and all of these things, the index, country, the near, the language, the keyword you've entered, and your deficit strategy settings, all of those things can be profiled. Wow. And so in profiles, you set up everything the way you like it, and then you can give it a name profile.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. So it should be something like Canada, Calgary, mobile, LSI set to 3 or something like that.
Yeah.
Exactly talking about that dial we're talking about. You don't have to keep tweaking it. You can set that profile and it's done. It's set.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, that's so cool. That's so awesome.
Then you can hot swap entire settings profiles right here.
Right.
And what's cool is you could set up a profile for client 1, give client 1 their own output folder, And then all of client one's reports goes to client one's folder.
Oh, interesting. Oh, you can change the folder too.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Of course you can. Yeah, because that's in the settings. That's super cool. That's awesome.
So that's a huge workflow tool, is to set up these profiles. And like, I set up a profile that's, everything turned on, and then I have a fast run. No, turn everything off. I just want to do a quick run.
Right.
And so those are the two I use a lot, because I do a lot of demos. But if I was doing a lot of client work, I'd have client 1 through client 12, and they'd all have their keywords, their primary keywords set up. It does all of their track domains. It does all their competitors that should auto flag. It would do everything for each client specifically. And then switching between clients becomes really easy. You don't have to reconfigure all that stuff.
Right. Another way I use Cora, and the way this profile would be perfect, is I do monthly Cora reports on standard keywords, and specifically in certain areas of the sales funnel. So I'll do like a no query, a no do query, and a do query or a buy query. And I can set a profile just to run those every month. Just go in Cora, run it, and it goes in its own folder. And then I can run a Cora diff on that.
Yeah,
it's nice and set up in its own folder. So that's another way you could use this. That's super awesome too.
Now, the important thing to note about profiles is that anytime you hit the save button, it will update the currently selected profile. So just be careful if you're noodling, that you make sure you're noodling in a place that's okay to noodle. Let's see, profiles. Then you can also update your profile. So if you make changes, saving will save the current selected. But if you made changes and before you hit save, no, I want it to do this one, you can update a selected one instead of saving it to the current one. You can export these. And the thing that the profiles will never store is your serial key or any of your third-party API keys. None of those things are in profiles, so you can't share them accidentally.
That's convenient. Good job for that. That's a good thing to do there, Ted.
But this means you can create a profile and give it to a coworker saying, here, use this profile for that new client.
Right. And I see the import profile button over there. So you could even come up with a profile and be like, okay, do it this way. And that's super awesome.
And so that's profiles. And I love using profiles. It's a huge time saver.
I bet. That's brilliant. Brilliant. That's fantastic.
So reports, you can enable the reports that you use and disable the ones that you don't. And again, these will all be saved in profiles. And then LSI has modes. So here, the LSI report is selected to be generated based on the competitor's content only. Or we could switch it. No, I want LSI against all top 100 results. So now there's LSI modes for where you get your LSI words from.
Right.
And then, of course, there's the setting, how many pages does a term need to appear on? In Cora 482, this would be really high because the only option in 482 was top 100 results. So if you want it to be like 482, that's the setting you need. But now you have these other ones where it's focused. No, I only want LSI based on my competitors. And this number has to be a lot lower than it used to be because there's no longer 100 pages. It can't be 40.
Mm-hmm.
Unless you're going to select 40 competitors. And then down here, there's a new report, the shared data report. And there's this option here to hide shared data. So some people feel that the shared data is counterproductive. It's confusing to their clients. It's not specific to their keywords, so they don't think it's on target. And they would rather have the reports look the way they did from 482. So if you hide your shared data, it will hide that information in the reports. It's all still in there. You can unhide those rows and columns and see the shared data if you change your mind. It's just hidden by default.
Yeah, that's great.
Right?
Oh, here you go. Here you go, client. What if I unhide this in Excel? Oh, don't do that.
But it's not lossy. It's there. It's just, you can get the Cora 5 view by not hiding it. You can get the Cora 4.82 view by hiding it. Your choice. Track domains will automatically check these boxes. So if you put domains in here, they automatically get checked when you do searches.
Right. Track competitors. I think we get banned. I think we get Ahrefs, SEMrush. That makes sense. You have very interesting word lists there. That's another really interesting thing too. Like, everyone check this out.
Okay, so these word lists, and we'll see these when we go over the reports. So the stop words is an old one. We used to have stop words in 4.8.2. And what they do is they filter out what appears in your variant keywords, and they also exclude what you see in the LSI report. And so we filter these out of the LSI and top words report. And the way these stop words work is that if an LSI term exactly equals 1 or begins with one of these words or ends with one of these words, then it's removed from the list. And that gives you less noisy results. And the general idea is that Google doesn't index these words anyway. Google said, hey, we have these stop words. They're so common that they have no context in terms of search results. And so we don't even bother to index these words. And so if Google's not counting them, we probably shouldn't either. And that's the idea. But if you disagree with that, you can change it, edit it, add to it, translate it to your language, because by default, we only populate it by English. So you have some control here on sculpting it. And probably the main use of having it here is for the international users who want to use a different language.
And then also, sorry, go ahead.
These lists are also controlled by profiles. So you should be able to hot swap by language.
Oh, wow. Cool. That's awesome too. And of course you have sentiment words.
Yes. And so these are all the words that we've seen commonly in the search results lending sentiment. And then recency, and then question words, and then commercial intent. Now, are these factors? We don't know, but we're interested in researching these more because these are coming up in the natural language tools more and more. Mm-hmm. And we've seen companies like Yelp start doubling down on sentiment. So they're now doing results that are the top 10 best plumbers in Seattle, where they're doubling up on sentiment in the titles and stuff like that. And so we want to watch that. And so again, you can add to it, you can take away from it, you can translate it. And that's why we put these controls in.
That's awesome. Now, factors is even, I mean, it's just amazing the work you put into this. Look, okay, everyone, Cal, shut up. Ted, go ahead.
Yeah, so another thing is that you might find that Cora runs slow on your computer. Not everybody has a 24-core supercomputer. So if you don't, and you're struggling with Cora runtimes, disable the reports you don't use, dial down your number of threads in the general settings, and turn off the factors you never intend to use. And so if we look at some here, let's find something we never intend to use, like say this one. I'd probably use that one though, but you can disable it.
Yes, you probably would.
You could also put in a list of of factors here and disable them.
Oh, just by its factor ID number.
Yeah. So you could just select the ones you don't like, paste them in here, and disable them. And we show you the ones that are disabled, so you can go, oh, I don't agree with that. Enable that one again.
Right.
And again, these are all controlled by profiles, so you can hot swap turning off factors too.
Wow, that's great. That's fantastic. I don't think that's probably, well, yeah, if your computer's running slowly, okay, I could see why you'd want to do that. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, because there's a number of factors that are academic that you can't really tune for, and you could turn those off. There's a number of them that are affiliate based, and if you don't care about affiliate stuff, turn those off. And when I disabled the reports I didn't need, and I disabled all the factors I didn't need, and I properly tuned my threads, I was able to get minute and a half Cora reports on a 4 CPU Mac.
Right.
So that's a big difference, So there's a lot of room for performance tuning now that didn't exist before.
Right.
Slow render. A lot of people don't understand why this exists. And occasionally you might see a Cora report that says, hey, we found results that have a 0 word count and you may need to rerun your report. It has this pink warning in your Excel file. When you see that, you look for which search results in the overview sheet have a 0 word count and just put their host names in here. Because the main reason why that happens is they're slow JavaScript framework websites, and they need extra load time to get the content drawn on the page. And you put them in here, they automatically get more rendering time from Cora, and then their content shows up.
Sweet.
So slow websites will often have a 0 word count. Just find them, put them in here, rerun the report, problem solved.
And colors, I was amazed you even did this as well. This was fantastic.
Yeah, a lot of people aren't getting their track domain to highlight. There's a bug. I'm still tracking down why it is. Your tracked highlight here, just come in and set the color and save it, and it'll start showing up. But your first run, it won't show up for some reason. So just know that there's that bug, and set that color manually, and it'll start working.
That's awesome for us colorblind folk
Yep.
who have trouble seeing different colors. All right, that's great. There's so much more we could talk about in the user interface, but let's go to a report now. I want to make sure we have all the time for questions and things. So let's go to a report. I have a report here we could look at, or if you have a report there, let me know.
All right. Well, let me show this part because I have stuff zoomed in. So this is the roadmap. And I noticed when you did your Cora 5 overview, you're like, skip it, don't use it. And I was like, no.
Oh, fair enough. Give us your argument for it.
Okay, this is exactly the data that's on the overview sheet that you do use. But what we've done is we took all of the records where you did not have a deficit. So you had more than what was needed, because you don't need to tune those. So we get rid of those. So these are only the ones where you were short. And these are only the strong correlations. So if it wasn't a strong correlation, we filtered it out too. So these are the strong correlations that you're short in. And it's exactly the same data that you will find in the deficit column of the overview sheet. And so it's the exact same data. If it's relevant there, it's relevant here.
Right.
And so this is how you are different than the competitors you chose. So if you're like, I wonder how I'm different from those competitors, this is it. This is the measurement of how you are deficient compared to those competitors.
And this changes based on the deficit strategy you select?
Yes.
Okay.
And these color codings are from the shared data. So the green font and the red font and the black font. What this means, the green font means it was a strong correlation for your keyword competitors. And it was a strong correlation with the shared data. So for thousands of other keywords.
Right, right.
If it's red, it means it was not a strong correlation for your keyword, but it was a strong correlation for thousands of other keywords. So these might be opportunities of oversight on your competitors' part. And then the black ones, these were strong factors for your keyword, but they were not strong factors in the shared data. These are the one-hit wonders that are keyword specific.
Right.
So at a glance in the data, I can see how they perform across thousands of keywords. I know these green ones are strong and broadly applicable. These black ones are only strong for my term, and these red ones aren't being competed on and might be opportunities. Oops.
Right. That's interesting. And I do have to give you credit in that it is even stronger correlation than it was previously, because before it was checking your search, your SERP, your niche, but now the green ones are not only the ones that are strong in your niche, but are strong across all the niches of all the shared data that you got.
Yeah.
So that definitely is a much stronger argument for why you should pay very close attention to these factors.
Yeah. So if you're trying to set priority, it's like, okay, I'm going to prioritize these ones, but hold on a second. We've noticed in our own testing that sentiment doesn't apply to every keyword. And look what happened up here. It's in black. Sentiment doesn't correlate strongly for every keyword in the shared data, but it does for this keyword. So there's an important signal right here that sentiment is turned on for my current keyword. I should probably consider that for this one.
Right.
Let's see what else is in here. US phone numbers aren't required for every niche, but they are for certain niches. And here it is. It's not strong in the shared data, but it showed up for this keyword report.
Mm-hmm.
So there's, really important data at a glance with that color coding. Now the yellow part is my opinions, and that's the one thing that you could probably throw away if you wanted. I made people kept saying, which ones should I do first? And I said, knock out the easy ones. And then people said, well, which ones are the easy ones? So I coded that in here, my opinion. And the reason the yellow
and Ted, can you teach me HTML at the same time? What is this internet thing? Can I make money on it?
Yeah.
Ted, you're such a nice guy. Even the basic questions that everyone should know the answers to, which ones are the easy ones, you're even answering that. So that I do give you kudos for that.
So the reason I consider these yellow ones easy is they're generally the ones that you can open up your content management system, edit the post, and hit publish and be done. The other ones require off-page factors, server configuration, installing new plugins, or web development.
Thinking, braining, things like that.
Exactly.
Okay, cool. All right, let's keep going.
Charts are the same. I didn't do any changes to charts. Measurement data has the shared data. I'm not showing it here. It's suppressed. But I'll show it to you in the shared data report. But you'll see it here too. But it's the same data as we'll see in the shared data report. And the deficit column here, this is exactly the same as those recommendations in the roadmap. So it's exactly the same data.
Right. So that math makes sense to me. I ran a couple of reports, and I don't know if just my math my eyes were not working that day, which is entirely possible, or if I didn't select the correct thing. So that makes sense. So deficit is 1 because the result from Yelp had 1. The page average was 0.5 on this very top one I'm looking at here.
Yep.
And so that's why it said the goal's 1. And that's what you should be. That's what you should be going for, because that's the deficit strategy that you selected was the maximum out of the top 3. We're going to give you the maximum and say we're gonna do the math and say, okay, if you got 0 and they got 1, you should be doing 1.
Now, if you select, 12 competitors, you're going to have to unhide this data so that you can see all those 12 competitors to figure out if it's
okay.
right.
I bet you that's where my problem was. That's where my issue
Yep.
was. And I love how you're playing with the fonts here too, and stuff like that.
Yep. So a red number here means you have a deficit, and non-red means you are equal to or greater than the goal.
Right. And so you can tell at an easier glance which one you're selecting there. Now, this was super impressive too when I first saw it. I was like, wow, look at this. Boom, you put it right in here.
Yep, all the shared data. Right now, the shared data is updating daily. I might change that to update hourly pretty soon.
Oh, wow. Cool. Okay. Fantastic.
But it's all here. You can view it. So this is all of the factors that are correlating strongly across Cora reports. We're sharing all 880, but we only share back the strong correlations. So just note that everything that doesn't appear in here didn't make the cut.
And just a little pro tip, the way I like to use this is I put this all in what I call a pivot table, a Control T or a Command T if you're on Mac, or Control T if you're on Windows table, and I make an extra column at the end, and I call it a prorated score, and I multiply the percentage times the best of both page correlation, and I sort by smallest, because what that's going to give me, it's going to give me the highest number of reports that have talked about this factor, and it's going to give me the best correlated factors, and that's the most important. In my mind, that's the most important factors. Do you have any comments on that, Ted?
There's one area that'll definitely break, and that's with the third-party APIs.
Exactly. That's what I noticed. Yeah.
Yeah, and the reason for that, the only reason why these percentages are so low for like Ahrefs, why they're 15%,
yeah,
is because these are same as money. They're API units, and only 15% of Cora customers had their Ahrefs turned on in this.
Right. Yeah. Of course.
So if everybody had it turned on, these would be 95% too.
Yes, then they would be very close to the top, because because that's measuring links right there. So you do the math on that one, listener.
So yeah, but these are sorted by correlation strength, so they still slot in where they should. It's just we're under-reporting how broadly applicable it is because people spend them like money, which is they try not to.
Right.
And what these fields are, so we have the correlation. So this is how strongly it correlated across all 100 results for every one of the 15,000 Cora reports shared. This is done by page, and the reason significance changes is because the sample size required changes. This is 100 samples by 10. It's 10 samples per keyword. So we need a higher standard of proof. So we need more correlation coefficient to be significant. And that's why the standard changes. You don't really need to know that, but it's there.
Sweet.
The number one maximum across all the Cora reports, the page one average across all the Cora reports, and what percentage of the Cora reports was it a significant correlation for? Right.
So that's fantastic, Ted. So I want to move on to making sure all the questions get answered, namely mine. It was the most important thing to me.
Okay.
So this is the report I ran for somebody here, and also somebody wanted me to run a report. So from someone from Calgary in Canada, Rough Riders fan, maybe, who knows, wanted me to do DUI lawyer. And so I did it. I noticed a couple of things I just want to ask. So first off, I noticed in here, when you're loading in the raw request, I don't know if anyone noticed this, but you're giving a time to first byte and a load timing feature. One, wow, that's fantastic. Two, where in the reports can we get that information, like a speed report?
Oh, that's coming up. You're seeing the architecture points of things that are still in development.
Oh, okay, that's exciting. Wow, I mean that's just
And
amazing.
when Chrome kicks in, we get the render time too.
Oh, oh my God, that's
Yeah,
so
if you
good.
scroll down to the Chrome retries, you'll see some of the render time message in there.
Oh yeah, okay. All right, so there's that question there. Wow, that's good. Okay, so I did the top 3 competitors. I did maximum as a deficit strategy. So now let's go and look at the core report. You got to know where your reports are going to spread out. This one got spit out here. And then remember, we got to talk about, I'm going to even have to have you on again. We got to talk about the page report that we're talking about there before. But it looks like I got a little bit of an error here. It looks like. Oh, that's the problem with new software. Do you see what I'm seeing here, Ted?
Yeah. It's have to look at your settings.
Sure. Okay.
Let's look at factors first. Make sure you didn't turn everything off or anything. No, that's fine.
Nope.
Interesting.
I did get this before, and I thought I sent it to you. This wasn't how it was when I ran it. I just did this while we were talking, by the way.
Yeah. Your LSI is too high. That number
For top 100 results?
Oh, for top 100. No, you're fine.
Sorry. Should it be 100 at that point, or?
No. You're okay. So you're saying top 100 results and must appear on 10 pages. That's fine.
Yeah, but it wasn't set that way to begin with. It was out of the box. There's the tracked thing. So anyway, let's go to an old report.
Yeah. Send me that one later. I'll take a look.
Sure. Okay. I'll put it on my desktop here. What do you mean you can't do it? Oh, because it's open. Excel, you're awfully dumb. You can't fix Excel, however. So online title loans. So this is where the shared data was. And what I was talking about is this is where I like to do one of these tables, Control T, and then I like to make a score, and just to show people what I was talking about. And then I make this cell times the percentage of the most, because that's going to be more reliable in terms of information. Although you're right, I'm not making ranking decisions based off of this, but then the best of both, boom, that's going to give me at least ones to look at right away, because these are all, like, almost every single of the 15,000 reports said this, and this is the highest correlating factors. And it's just kind of interesting when you look at it. It's like, wow, yeah, of course, keywords, term frequency. It's a very interesting. I thought also numbers of factors used. These are very interesting numbers for a number of reasons. One, they're whole numbers. That doesn't make any sense to me. Two, if this is correct, that means that on average, to get to page 1, you need about 100 factors, and the maximum is 200 factors. And again, it's weird because Google says that 200, they use 200 ranking factors. That it's kind of weird how these numbers have played out. Do you have any comment on that, Ted?
Yeah, those are coincidence that they're whole numbers. So yesterday they weren't those numbers.
Yeah, that's weird.
Yeah, so that's luck of the draw.
That's
but number of factors used, it's been a rising star. That's factor diversity, and it correlates very strongly. So
right, that's also your MC4 hypothesis.
Yeah. If your web page uses 34 factors and number 1 on Google uses 57, don't you want to know what those other factors might be?
Right. Yeah, exactly. And it's interesting, just as a general, to say, okay, look, on average, if you want to rank on page 1, you need about 100 different factors that Cora tracks.
Yeah. And so in a future version of the diff tool, I want to play with that so that you can say, which factors am I missing from the higher ranking competitors, and get to a filter that way.
Okay, that's interesting. And as you mentioned, yes, of course, like down here, we're going to have, where is Ahrefs down here? Where is it? Somewhere closer down here, we're going to have, we're going to have Ahrefs and stuff. And this is not to say that it so correlates quite strongly, of course, because this is tracking linking stuff. But as you said, not everyone's, it just monetarily, not everyone's running it. So it's arbitrarily low. But,
yeah.
Okay. So
should we show the content report a little bit?
You know what? If you don't mind, I would even have you back another day, because that thing is like that could take an hour in itself of how awesome that is and all the stuff you have in there.
Okay.
I have certain questions I wanted to ask about this particular one here. First off, top words. Let me just stop this. And so I had questions I had in here. Okay, so you answered the time to first byte speed report. Top words. The top words feature in your reports. I don't know if I have one here in my folder that shows it.
I do, I believe. Let me double check.
I could also just do a quick search here. Okay. So I have one here. Or not. My question about it is, do you have it there?
Yeah. Let me just resize it and change windows.
Woohoo! 25% off. Can't forget that. Yes, if you want 25% off Cora, what you're seeing here, bit.ly/get-Cora, which goes to the same URL as the one that you just showed on the screen there. There, yeah. So those are the top words. Now, do you have a place in the report where you show all the words out of all the 100 pieces, all the 100 shards of pages you collect when you do your Cora report? Is this the top words?
Yeah, I don't show every word because that would be absolutely massive. That would show every word on every page for 100 pages, and that could be absolutely huge. That we're talking phone books,
right?
Yeah. So these are just the top 30 most used on each page, and the yellow are variant match words.
Mm-hmm.
And what I like to tell people is it's not about the number. It's not necessarily about getting the most, but it's about getting the yellow to the top. Because what you're doing by doing that is you're saying my page is mostly about these terms at the top.
Yeah.
So if Google is at all trying to figure out what is the dominant topic of a page, it's going to be based on this. Because if your page is 95% about apple pies and 5% about sports cars, how should that rank compared to another page that's 100% about sports cars?
Of course, right.
And you'll see factors in Cora. Let me see if I can spot one. They don't always correlate, but they often do. I don't see it in this one, but it'll say keywords in the top 3 most used phrases. You recall ever seeing that one?
Oh, yeah. Yes, yeah.
Well, these right here would be the top 3 most used phrases, and it's talking about how many yellow ones are in that top 3. So this guy might need to get 3 more in the top 3 most used phrases. So we need to get those yellow ones, 3 of those yellow ones, into the top 3. That's what that factor is telling you to do. And this is the report that tells you what needs to change. And there's 2 ways to get these yellow ones to move up. You can use them more on the page, but that's often hard to do. Or we can use these less.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. So what is the possibility of getting a content vector analysis on these top words? And how is that different from LSI or like a semantic vector analysis on these words?
Well, I'd have to look up what they're doing, because everybody's AI implementations are completely different inventions.
Right.
So there's a lot of mad science in AI right now.
Yes.
I'm not saying that it's not legitimate. It's just that everybody has their own Frankenstein, and no 2 Frankensteins are the same.
Right. Yeah. Because I think using this as the corpus, because we don't have access to the actual corpus, the Google search results, right? Their entire 130 trillion pages, whatever. But I think this is already pre-sorted by Google. And if you use this as the corpus, I think the content vectoring analysis will come out with some interesting, it might come out with just the same LSI keywords or, you know, whatever, but it might come out with some interesting results there.
Yep.
And there's a reason why I'm asking you this, and you can imagine why Josh is interested all of a sudden in content vectoring.
Yeah, yeah. And normally when I look at this report, I like seeing this clustering at the top. Like this is normal relevancy at play. When I see something like this, I'm like, okay, there's something else going on here. Maybe off page is more at play. Maybe this is good enough. You know, who knows? But in general, I just tend to like to see that clustering at the top. And it's not just about being at yellow at the top. It's also about having more yellow in this list.
Right.
So if there are 25 words and you got all 25 in here, man, that's perfect.
Yeah, and that's a good visual report. What I'm thinking of is like, I'd love to see a content vectoring report, which is like the LSI report, but it gives you the top content, the vector keywords. It's like group. And then at that point, I want to see the vector keywords in the H1 and the H2 and H3 and the title and the URL and all that. Yeah. I'd love to see the LSI keywords in there too. I've been bugging you for a while about getting those put in.
Well, we're almost to a place. One of the things you might not have noticed now is that Cora does the LSI analysis before measuring the factors.
Right, you have to. Yeah, you're selecting it on mobile.
Well, the other thing is it used to be after, but now that it's before, we have that data to measure in zones on pages. So future factors could actually look for LSI words and headings.
Okay, fantastic. So I have a few more questions I want to make sure I get to here. Basic question: what is the most plug-and-play way to use Cora?
If you're overwhelmed by data, I recommend just using the roadmap, because if you can knock out 5 or 10 things on the roadmap, you'll probably see some ranking improvement in 2 to 10 days. So if you're looking for quick wins and you're just confused by everything else, just use the roadmap. Start there, learn SEO, and find quick wins. And the name of the game is to get quick wins, because you don't want to invest huge amounts on SEO. You want to invest the minimum to get to where you want to be.
Well, of course, yeah. We don't want the changes to take forever. we want it quick. So yeah, that makes sense to me. Kelvin says, does having Google web properties and interlinking them help with ranking? That has nothing to do with Cora. I think backlinks probably are important, whether you should be getting them from Google properties or not. In my opinion, that strategy is pretty done and fairly risky, but we're doing Cora related stuff. Michael says, what about if you have more and need to reduce? Again, Michael, not to speak with Ted, but he has already mentioned on the show, and I have the philosophy that I don't know that there is such a thing. The thing about Cora is that, and Ted, I don't know maybe if you will agree with this or maybe you'll disagree, but feel free to either. But Cora is the best, and I'm not exaggerating. Cora is the best SEO measurement tool that exists, but you have to use your own ranking philosophy, for lack of a better word, to determine whether you want to go out, what your deficit strategy is going to be, right? You need to have your own ranking philosophy, and ours for our group is based off of scientific testing. Ted has his own way of doing testing in his own group and correlation studies and stuff like that. And other people might have their own opinion. They might like to listen to the blog at Barry Schwartz's blog at SE Roundtable and use that as their ranking philosophy, and then use Cora to measure to try and gain that kind of philosophy. So you need to join a group that's going to give you your ranking philosophies for all those different kinds of things. And Cora is just a tool that will let you measure, but it definitely is a tool you need to use. You can't build a house unless you have a measuring tape. You can't rank SEO unless you have Cora, in my opinion.
Yeah, and with over optimization specifically, step 1, prove that over optimization is real. Prove that that's actually a thing. Step 2, there are probably as many accounts of detuning hurting your rankings as there are of helping, and that's a coin flip. And you don't want to take your client's website to a coin flip on how it's going to perform. So I generally tell people that, don't take detuning a page off the table. I know there are accounts of it working, but that coin flip is the last thing you want to try. It's not the first thing you want to try.
Yeah, and I would definitely agree. I try to give out as much free information as possible, and that's one of the free information I'm going to put out is don't remove stuff. don't remove keywords willy-nilly because Google says keywords are bad or because you listen to someone at SMX. They have no idea what they're talking about, and they're not your friend. They're not there to help you.
And for the record, I have tuned pages to 95% keyword density. I have tuned them to 7, 8, 9,000 keyword matches per page. Google indexed and ranked them all. Now, those would manually get a penalty, but there's nothing algorithmic that I can detect in my testing that is stopping you from doing any value of those things.
Spray Foam Life says, probably off topic, but I'm working on some local SEO and made a Google My Map with the client's job pictures. I noticed it got over 100 views overnight. Do you think this could help with SEO? And is there any way to use Cora to check this? No. Again, I could say so much about this question. No, Cora isn't specifically used to check that kind of a thing. It's used to track all the factors that you can track on the pages, mostly on-page stuff, and some backlink stuff, some social stuff, some off-page stuff as well.
Yeah, organic web results only, though. It's not going to look at the map pack.
Right.
It's not going to look at the knowledge pane. It's it's not going to look at the shopping carousel.
Yeah.
I look at Cora as like a like you're looking at like a battle map, and there's all the details you need to see, but you're still a person who's going to be standing there making a strategy, right?
Yeah, and that's exactly right. Cora does not replace an SEO. Cora makes a good SEO better. And the reason being is that all these tools, like any measurement tool you get for SEO, is going to tell you how much you need. It's not going to tell you how best to do it. You still need an SEO at the helm to do the right thing with the data.
Definitely. So again, that local strategy, I'm not crazy about what you said you did there. I mean, if you got 100 views overnight, great, good for you. You're getting traffic, so that's actually not a bad thing. I shouldn't be so poo-pooed to it. But yeah, there's so much more than just that. that's like I was going to teach you martial arts, and you're like, I was sparring last night, and I stepped on his big toe, and he started hopping up and down. Can I win every fight that way? No, no, you can't. So great, you did it. Good for you. But I mean, you need a more robust strategy that has more built into it. Sean says the report may not have worked because I didn't put the URL on the top 100. I did actually. I put the URL on the top 100. So I'll send it to Ted. Ted will figure it out. In the data we were looking at earlier, Cora was tracking 251 keywords in the top page's HTML tag. We often see large numbers for this and heading tags, images, and such. How would you take action on these?
Well, you always want to look at what your outliers are doing. So once in a while, I'll get a report that says I need to add, 7,000 keywords to my page, and I'll be, what the heck? That's obviously keyword stuffing. So I'll go to the overview sheet. I'll find out which website is driving up that measurement, because it's all measurement data. We can see who's pushing that number up. Then I go to the result sheet, find their result URL. Then I'll go there and I'll view source. And it's important that you do view source, because a lot of those keywords won't be visible on the page. They'll be hidden in hidden divs and tabs and things. And so when you view source and search for the keyword, oh, they have a non-paginating comment thread. They have 13,000 comments, and every time they mention blue carrots, their match count went up, and this page has been around for 17 years.
Mm-hmm.
Bingo. Outlier understood. Now, when I look at my data, I can say I don't want to tune to 17,000. I'll go to the next highest one, which was 433.
It's all an exercise in risk mitigation. If you do not have, let's say you could magically tell what the ranking factors were. Let's say you were a psychic and you could go bloop, you could read the mind of the Google engineers. You could read the mind of Paul Haar, and you're like, okay, I know what all the ranking factors are now. And then Cora is just a tool. You would measure everybody else, measure yourself. It would tell you what you're deficient on 800 different factors. Dollars to donuts, out of the 800 factors that Ted is tracking, Google is tracking some subset in there. He might have missed a few. There's some he can't track.
Yeah, they claim 200, so I suspect we have a lot of them.
You're 4 times higher, so the odds are that you've got a good spread of them anyway. And let's say you knew 100% what the ranking factors are through magic, through like you killed a chicken, you put the blood on it, and you looked at the smoke, and the ranking factors became apparent to you. Then the process is the same, right? You got to have that chicken, killing the chicken and the smoke. Cora works the same in every time. You still need Cora to do the measurements to tell you what you need to do. Unless you want to do it manually, you can try doing it manually, but that would be foolish. And don't think it's just, well, you only need to change the keywords from the title tag and the body, two places that you could do manually. But trust me, it's both Ted's group and my group have been doing scientific testing for a couple of years now. It is far more complex than that. And so you've got to be joining a science group to at the very least, there is a ranking philosophy that as Ted already showed, is built into Cora. And if you don't want to join a science group, which I strongly recommend you do, then at the very least you have that to go by. So I wouldn't. I think, Ted, you're being unfair to yourself. I wouldn't say that Cora it doesn't replace the SEO, of course, but it does give a good recommendation as to which way you should go. Yeah. But at the end of the day, you got to get. Sorry, Ted, 1 second. At the end of the day, you got to get your ranking philosophy from somewhere, and Cora has to be a part of it to measure. You got to get your architecture degree from somewhere, and then you got to use the tape measure to build houses. You got to get your SEO philosophy from somewhere, and you got to use Cora to do the measurements, to do the ranking. And I would recommend strongly doing. I'd recommend strongly doing a science-based group like my group. If you want more information about it, email joshbachynski@gmail.com. Ted also has a separate group. If you don't like me, you can go join those guys. That's fine. But you got to get your ranking philosophy somewhere, and it's got to be a much more robust than just I tried this trick. Maybe that'll work. That kind of a thing. He-Man says, "What is the fastest refresh rate for shared data you see Cora getting to?"
Well, the Cora shared data is based on how fast Cora customers run reports. So, it really depends upon Cora user usage patterns. So, I'd imagine hourly is probably more than we need right now. Maybe 3 times, 4 times a day is probably ideal for right now.
I think that would be amazing. Even 3 or 4 times a day would be amazing.
But it's all possible. It's just out on a server, and I just got to schedule the scripts to run every 4 hours instead.
Sweet. Okay, well, thanks a lot, guys. This has been our Cora 5 demo of some of the stuff. Later on, if Ted wants to come on, I'd love to have Ted come on because there's a whole nother report. Well, a whole other section.
You missed the shiny new thing.
The shiny new thing. Yes, that's the hook. That's the hook to hook them back there, Ted. So there's a shiny new thing that was amazing enough as it is. And I definitely, I doff my hat. I give you a round of applause for everything you've done there.
It's safe to say you haven't even seen half the data yet.
Yeah, you haven't even seen half of it yet. There's a whole nother report going on there that hopefully we'll get Ted to come back on at some point and show us. So I'd like to thank, I've got to run. We've been over an hour here. So thanks everyone for watching. If you have any questions at all, email me at joshbachynski@gmail.com. As I mentioned, there is a special. You can get 25% off Cora at seotoolab.com/special.php, or a bit at the same thing as bit.ly/get-cora, get-cora. You can get 25% off. Try it for a month. See if you like it. I guarantee you will. It will change your SEO game. Your life will never be the same. So thanks very much, Ted, for joining us.
Thank you.
And we'll see you all next time. Good luck in the SERPs.
Bye
For
bye.
those about to rank, sorry, Ted, say it again.
Oh, bye bye.
For those about to rank, we salute you and good luck at the SERP. See you next time.